Poverty is not a virtue, but it is not destiny either. It is the result of a brain that never received the right programming. Napoleon Hill. 88% of people work very hard and remain poor. This is not an estimate. It is not an opinion. It is a direct measurement mapped in 2019 by the International Labour Organization across 142 countries. 8 out of 10 workers dedicate more than 40 hours a week to productive activities and end the month unable to cover basic expenses without going into debt. In Brazil, according to the IBGE, 47 million Brazilians work regular or extended hours and live on a per capita income below half the minimum wage. 47 million people who wake up early, who meet their targets, who never miss work, who never give up, and who still reach the end of the month at the limit. And here is the truth that nobody is telling you. The problem is not lack of effort. It never was. Napoleon Hill spent 25 years studying 500 American millionaires. He interviewed every one of them. He documented patterns, habits, decisions, beliefs, and he arrived at a conclusion that contradicts everything you learned in school, everything your father taught you, everything society repeats as universal law. None of the millionaires attributed wealth exclusively to the volume of hours worked. But all of those who remained poor, without exception, believed that working more was enough. Let me tell you something. There is a specific brain mechanism that transforms effort into chronic poverty. It has been documented by modern neuroscience. It is active right now as you listen to this. And as long as it remains active without you knowing how it works, no amount of hours worked will change your financial result. This is not motivation. This is neuroscience applied to money. What you are going to discover here will dismantle a belief you have carried for decades and will rebuild the way you see every hour of your effort from today forward, not because you're going to start working less, but because you will finally understand why the effort you are already putting in is not being converted into wealth by your own brain. If this is speaking to you, subscribe to the channel, because what comes next is the missing piece. Say this out loud. I work very hard, and from today I will understand why that is not enough. And what changes now? You grew up hearing that hard work is the path to wealth. Your grandfather repeated it. Your father did too. School taught that dedication and constant effort separate the successful from the failures, and it makes sense to believe it because for centuries that belief described reality with absolute precision. Farmers who worked more harvested more. Factory workers who doubled their shifts earned twice as much. Merchants who opened 7 days a week made more than their competitors. The reward arrived proportional to the sweat invested. Whoever carried more bags received more coins. Whoever planted more hectares sold more grain. The relationship between physical effort and material result was direct, measurable, predictable. And entire generations became wealthy by following exactly that logic. That is why you still believe it. Not because you are naive, but because that belief worked for a different economy, for a different time, for a different type of production. Write this down. A belief can have been true one day and still be costing you money today. Napoleon Hill recorded something fundamental over the 25 years of research that resulted in Think and Grow Rich. He heard from workers, from bankrupts, from people who never left the financial place where they were born. The same phrase repeated with total conviction. Whoever wants to win wakes up before the sun and sleeps after the moon. And he also documented what was behind that thought. The absolute belief that volume of effort was the only variable separating the poor from the rich. But Hill also interviewed Carnegie, interviewed Ford, interviewed Edison, interviewed Rockefeller, and none of them said that. What they said was different. They said that effort, without program direction is merely energy wasted with good intention, that working hard in the wrong circuit does not produce wealth, it produces exhaustion with the appearance of virtue. Say this out loud. Effort without programming is fuel without a destination. The economy changed. The type of work that generates wealth changed. Of the 10 highest-paying professions in the world today, none reward physical effort. All reward decision, system, intellectual property. But your brain did not receive that update, and that is exactly where the problem begins. Let me tell you something. It is not lack of effort that keeps 88% of people poor. It is excess of effort in the wrong neural circuit and a lack of understanding of how the brain processes the relationship between work and money. That is what neuroscience discovered, and that is what changes everything from now on. You were taught to work harder. Nobody ever taught you to program the brain before working. And that gap, that one step nobody mentioned, is the difference between accumulating exhaustion and accumulating wealth. Here is the truth. The belief you inherited was not wrong. It was incomplete. And an incomplete belief applied with total dedication produces incomplete results with total consistency. You can be the most dedicated worker in your family and still be the poorest. Not because effort is lacking, but because the mechanism that converts effort into wealth inside your own brain is missing. And that mechanism has a name. It has an anatomical location. It has a documented function. And it is being ignored by 88% of the people who work very hard and remain poor. In 1995, neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga documented at the Cognitive Neuroscience Laboratory of the University of California something that forever changed the way science understands the relationship between effort and money. The human prefrontal cortex still processes financial reward using circuits formed 200,000 years ago when physical effort generated immediate results. Hunting more brought more meat. Collecting more fruit guaranteed more food. The neural system did not evolve to process income dissociated from visible effort. Today, wealth comes from systems, from leverage, from intellectual property, from strategic decisions. None of these activities activates the same reward circuits as manual labor, and the result is devastating for those who do not understand what is happening inside their own skull. Write this down. You work with a 21st century body using a brain programmed for the African savannah of 200,000 years ago. In 2017, a study from Princeton University followed 12 zero-noted American workers for 3 years. The result was documented in the Journal of Neuroscience with a conclusion that reversed decades of common sense about productivity. The more hours dedicated to repetitive tasks, the lower the activation of the nucleus accumbens. The nucleus accumbens is the brain region responsible for associating present action with future gain. It is the circuit that tells your brain that what you are doing now will generate reward later. When that circuit does not activate, the brain interprets effort as a survival activity, not as wealth building. And survival activity generates cortisol, not dopamine. It generates stress, not motivation. It generates exhaustion, not wealth. Say this out loud. If my brain does not connect my effort to my financial future, I work more and become poorer at the same time. That is exactly what happens with 88% of people. It is not lack of willpower. It is not lack of intelligence. It is a neural circuit that was never correctly activated because nobody taught how to do it. Your brain has two distinct financial circuits. The first was mapped in 2003 by Wolfram Schultz at the University of Cambridge, the immediate effort reward pathway. When you work and receive payment on the same day, the dopaminergic neurons in the midbrain fire and reinforce that behavior. This is the circuit that kept humanity alive for millennia. Hunt today, eat today, work today, receive today. The second circuit was identified by Samuel McClure in 2004 at Princeton University. It involves the lateral prefrontal cortex and processes delayed reward. Invest today, harvest months or years from now. This circuit requires 60% greater neural effort, consumes more brain glucose, and only works when you mentally visualize the future gain before acting. Here is the truth that separates those who build wealth from those who merely survive. The rich operate in the second circuit. The poor, even those who work the hardest, operate almost exclusively in the first. Napoleon Hill called the activation of the second circuit definite purpose. It was not a motivational metaphor. It was a precise description of a neurological process he identified empirically decades before. Neuroscience had the tools to confirm it. You define the image of wealth in the mind with absolute specificity, and only then does the brain direct effort toward the actions that produce it. Let me tell you something. If you work without that mental image previously recorded in the prefrontal cortex, your brain interprets every hour of effort as immediate survival. The money does not arrive on the same day. The neural circuit concludes that that action does not generate wealth, and it progressively deactivates financial motivation, keeping you trapped at the salary that barely covers the bills, no matter how many hours you work. If you want to structure this reprogramming in a practical way, the 21-day mental reprogramming planner was created exactly for that, to transform this neurological process into a daily ritual, thought by thought. The link is pinned in the first comment. Maria Santos worked 14 years as a telemarketing operator in São Paulo. She exceeded targets above 120% for years in a row. She handled 340 calls per day. She received quarterly performance bonuses. She was promoted 3 times within the same company. In 2022, she was laid off with a negative balance of $700 on her credit card and no financial reserves. 14 years of total dedication, 0 financial result. Let me tell you something. Maria did not fail for lack of effort. Her neural circuit failed for lack of programming. The quarterly bonus arrived 90 days after the effort. The prefrontal cortex did not consolidate the connection between the call answered today and the money received later. Each call activated the immediate survival circuit: tension, target, pressure. But the gain arrived too late for the neural system to associate that action with the financial result. She never formed a mental image of wealth before acting, so 14 years of intense work were processed by the brain as a maintenance activity, not as wealth building. Write this down. The brain does not measure how much you worked. It measures whether what you did is connected to the image of wealth you recorded before you began. Jose Almeida, a metallurgist in the ABC Paulista region for 22 years, lived the same pattern. He worked 3 shifts in the 1990s. He paid off his house in 2015. At 58, he had $12,000 in savings and no source of passive income. 2 decades of intense physical effort converted into exactly enough not to starve, and nothing beyond that. Not because he did not work, because his work was never processed by the right circuit. Say this out loud. Working very hard in the wrong circuit does not build wealth. It builds resistance to failure, but not wealth. Now look at the other side of the same pattern. Henry Ford worked 16 hours a day in the 1900s, the same volume of hours as Jose Almeida. But Ford had already recorded in his prefrontal cortex a specific image, not a vague dream. A surgical image, an automotive empire that would transform American transportation. Each hour of work was processed by the second neural circuit, the delayed reward circuit. The dopaminergic system fired with each completed prototype because it recognized progress toward the pre-recorded image. The difference between Ford and Jose Almeida was not effort. It was programming before effort. Andrew Carnegie said something that Hill recorded carefully in his manuscripts. The man who does not know where he is going will work twice as hard to arrive nowhere. Carnegie was not being philosophical. He was describing the same neurological mechanism that science would take decades to map with magnetic resonance imaging. Without a prior image recorded in the prefrontal cortex, effort and direction dissociate. The body works. The brain does not convert. Here is the truth that connects Maria, Jose, Ford, and Carnegie. The mechanism is identical in all of them. What changes is whether the second circuit was activated before the effort began. And activating that circuit is not a matter of intelligence, social class, opportunity, or luck. It is a matter of deliberate programming. It is a matter of recording the right image in the right place of the brain before moving the body. Napoleon Hill called this the definition of a definite major purpose. Neuroscience calls it pre-activation of the delayed reward circuit. The name does not matter. What matters is that this process exists, is documented, is replicable, and 88% of people who work very hard were never taught to do it. Let me tell you something. You are not Maria or Jose by accident. You are the result of a neural system that never received the correct instructions, and correct instructions can be installed at any moment, including now. From today, you rebuild 3 layers of your relationship with effort and money. Not tomorrow, not on Monday. Today, because every day the wrong circuit operates is a day of effort converted into survival when it could have been converted into wealth. The first layer is prior programming. Before working, you record the image. Napoleon Hill called it the definition of a definite major purpose. Neuroscience calls it pre-activation of the prefrontal cortex. The process is identical. You define with surgical specificity the financial result your effort is building, not a vague dream, an exact number, a specific date, a concrete image. Write this down. The brain does not work toward concepts. It works towards specific images recorded with repetition and emotion. Take paper and pen, now, not later. Write down the exact number of your desired monthly income, the full address of the house where you are going to live, the make and model of the car you are going to drive, the name of the bank where your account will have 6 digits. This is not a motivational exercise. It is software installation in the second neural circuit. The circuit that will convert every hour of effort into progress toward the image you just defined. Say this out loud. I do not work for a salary. I work toward a specific image that my brain already knows. The second layer is correct measurement. You stop measuring progress by hours worked and start measuring by approximation to the recorded image. This change of metric is not semantic. It is neurological. When you measure hours, the brain activates the immediate survival circuit. When you measure distance in relation to the pre-recorded image, the brain activates the delayed reward circuit and releases dopamine with each step of approach, not cortisol with each hour of exhaustion. Ford did not measure how many hours he worked in 1903. He measured how many prototypes were finished, how many engine problems were solved, how close he was to the image he had already recorded. The effort was the same, the metric was different, and the different metric activated the different circuit, which generated the different result. Let me tell you something. You are going to keep working the same hours. What is going to change is the neural circuit that processes those hours, and that changes everything. The third layer is deliberate repetition. Napoleon Hill wrote in Think and Grow Rich that autosuggestion is not mental weakness. It is the only known method of recording instruction directly in the subconscious with enough depth to alter automatic behavior. Modern neuroscience calls this directed neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to form new neural circuits through repetition with emotional charge. You read the image you recorded out loud every morning before you begin to work. You read it again every night before you sleep. Not because it is a mystical ritual, because repetition with emotion is the only process the prefrontal cortex recognizes as a permanent instruction, and not as a passing thought. Write this down. Repetition is the language of belief, and belief is the only fuel the second neural circuit accepts. Abraham Lincoln said that if he had 8 hours to cut down a tree, he would spend 6 sharpening the axe. Programming the brain before working is sharpening the axe. And a sharp axe does not need more strength. It needs less. Here is the final truth of this topic. 88% of people work with a dull axe because nobody ever taught them that sharpening it was the first step. You now know. And knowing without applying is the only waste that has no excuse. Say this out loud. I program before I execute. I record the image before I move my body. I activate the right circuit before I work a single hour. That is what changes, not the effort, the circuit. And now we reach the point where all of this settles in for good. And if you want this reprogramming to happen in a structured way, day after day, thought by thought, the 21-day mental reprogramming planner is the natural next step after this video. Your mind may be blocking what your results could already have built. The link is pinned in the first comment. So reformulate now, completely and with no turning back. 88% of people work very hard and remain poor, not because they are weak, not because they are lazy, not because they lack discipline, because they are operating in the wrong neural circuit. The immediate survival circuit that the human brain formed 200,000 years ago and that never received the update that the modern economy requires. You are not different from them by accident. You are different from the moment you understand the mechanism and deliberately decide to change the circuit. Napoleon Hill spent 25 years documenting what the rich do differently, and the answer was not that they worked more. It was that they programmed the brain before working. They recorded the image of wealth in the prefrontal cortex with specificity and repetition, and only then moved the body toward it. Effort was the consequence of the programming, not the cause of wealth. Write this down, one last time, with everything you have. Wealth is not a reward for effort. It is the result of a programmed brain that directs effort to the right place. Say this out loud. I program my brain before I work. I record the image before I move my body. I operate in the right circuit, and my effort finally builds what it always should have built. Say it again. I am not the 88%. I understand the mechanism. I change the circuit. I build wealth with the same effort that before built only exhaustion. Let me tell you something before we finish. The world will keep telling you to work more, to wake up earlier, to sleep later, to try harder, dedicate more, sacrifice more. And it will use the language of virtue to package that instruction, because keeping people operating in the survival circuit is the model that sustains those who already operate in the right circuit. You now know how to read what is behind that. Here is the final truth. The problem was never how much you worked. It was which circuit you worked in, and circuits are changed with deliberate programming, not with more hours, not with more strength, not with more sacrifice. Program the brain, record the image, repeat until the right circuit is the only one that operates. Subscribe to the channel. Come back here tomorrow. Because this message needs to be repeated until your neural system recognizes it not as information, but as a permanent instruction. And that is exactly what wealth building requires. Not a moment of insight, but deliberate repetition until the right circuit becomes your default. The world bends to those who walk with a programmed brain. Start today.